we're on.
Yay! Welcome to burnoutstudios.com. Normally we do a lot more talking about stories, or that's what we try to do. That way we don't get into this whole political mess.
I guess I need to bring this over.
The crap that we're going through right now here in Utah. That's where we're at. Gas is now $5.30. I mean,
$5.30?
You can find it cheaper. I found it for $5.19, even $5.14. But along the freeway, $5.30.
Wow.
So, anyway,
and just be careful when you go to the cheaper places. My brother works on installing and pumps and sub pump. They go and retrofit all gas stations when the tanks had to go 2-ply, so they come and fill those in, or they build you gas tanks and gas stations.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times cheaper places, they also cheap out on calibrating their pumps.
Right.
So you might be getting actually 2 cents less.
Right.
Or
they're supposed to have people that go around and test that shit.
No, that's because you have to pay for that.
Oh.
And so if it's cheaper gas, a lot of times it's cheaper service. And they also don't change out their filters as often. And so you're also getting a lot of dirt and gunk in your gasoline, which then translates into into your engine. So just be mindful that sometimes going to some of the more established places,
right, is
like way back in the day, about 15, 20 years ago, he would tell you not to go to a Maverick. That's when he was in St. George. He'd tell you, don't go to the Maverick because their gas was dirty. But now they become so big.
Oh, yeah, they're huge.
They have to actually hold themselves to higher standards now.
Right.
So now their gas is pretty good. But some places, yeah, it's interesting.
Well, we weren't really going to talk about gas. So
that sidebar.
If you know the title, which you probably do, 2 weeks ago when we did our last podcast, I think I mentioned on there I had an idea of doing a T-shirt. That's where the idea started. Was I thought it would be cool to have a T-shirt that said, "A gun saved my life," and that was the whole idea for the T-shirt. But the idea just started spinning in my head.
Ask me how? Why?
Well, that came next.
Oh.
The next part of the idea, it blossomed to where it was a T-shirt that would say, "A gun saved my life, ask me how," or "Ask me my story." And it was just a way to maybe get people talking, so people would know that guns can be used for self-defense, and that's what they are, for. But the idea kept spinning in my head, and being an avid podcast listener, I listen to all these different podcasts, and they always talk about how there's statistics. Steven Crowder, he mentions it all the time. There was 1 million, I think he said, self-defense, uses of a firearm last year alone. And, there's different things. I'm sure you can go on crowdershop.com and find all this information, as he says. I was even listening to Rogan, and he was talking to, I think his name's Tim Kennedy, and they were talking about, because of the Uvalde shooting, Kennedy was talking about what he would like to see schools go to. And his job in the military is hardening places, and he would like to see schools turned into hard targets instead of these easily destroyed places that they are. And I'd like to
Excuse
see
me.
that too. But they even mentioned during that podcast that
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
there's no place to go to see all these different, self-defense scenarios. And so basically I wanted to, the idea kept evolving in my head, and now it's kind of a letter writing campaign, and I'm asking for help from all of these guys. I have a list of, I might as well read them off here. Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, Colion Noir, Guns and Gadgets. If you haven't heard of any of these people, look them up. It's great. Brandon Herrera, Demolition Ranch, and I want to send them a letter basically asking for their help I want to create this t-shirt, but I don't necessarily want it something that I sell anymore. I want to create a place where people can videotape themselves or send a letter telling their story about how a gun saved their life. And the story doesn't have to be, some fantastical thing, that, sounds like BS. I want true accounts of how a gun saved your life. I personally, when I lived in California, I didn't live in the best parts of California. The story that I sent to them, I have a letter that I'm sending to all of them. I ran a storage place in Lodi, California. Lodi's not the nicest place in the world, but it's okay. Anyway, running a storage place, it is what you would think it is. Usually it's an old retired couple that run them. But you live on site and you take care of the place, and you rent out storage units to people. But the problem is even though there's a security gate and everything, people still, consider them fairly soft targets for theft. And so one day as I was walking around, I noticed a bunch of units had their padlocks on them, and each padlock had been cut but left in place to make it look like nobody had touched it. And then there was a couple that were wide open still had stuff in it, but it had been jumbled through. Somebody had actually gone through the unit. So basically, the scenario that went through my head was, okay, there's either one or multiple guys that are cutting all these locks, and they're going through them one by one, taking the stuff they want, driving off premise, and then coming back for the next one and the next one and the next one. And so the gate that we had has a security code, and sure enough, there was one guy that kept using his security code over and over and over again. So we knew pretty much that it was him that was coming in and hitting all these places. And so we called the police, reported to them that there's somebody that's stealing stuff, and when they come back, we told the police that we'd lock the gate and keep them inside until the cops got here. And so that was the plan. The cops were on their way, and as soon as we got off the phone with the police, sure enough, they were back. And the gate opened. They had just put in their code, and they drove in. And so we let them go to the next storage unit that they had cut, and they started doing their thing. It was a group of 3 men in a truck, and they were doing their thing. We had locked the gate. No other customers were in the place at that time, and so they got what they wanted out of that container, came to the gate, and put in the code, and the code thing says, sorry, gate's locked, or malfunction, or whatever the heck it says. I don't even know. And they came and they knocked on the back door, And Brian, that's my partner at the time, he answered through the door. He's like, yes. And, the guy says, the gate's not working. And he's like, and Brian said, no, the gate's working just fine. We locked it, so the police are on their way. And at that point, the bad guy started kicking the crap out of the back door and kicked the door in. They weren't armed with guns or anything like that, but it was 3 of them and 2 of us, and they had heavy items that they were going to beat us with. And if it wasn't for the fact that Brian was armed and stuck a gun in their face, we probably would have been battered and beaten and killed. After they backed out of the place, we opened the gate. And as soon as they exited the gate, the cops were there and they were arrested. It is funny because the cops told us that they did complain to the police officer. They said, he stuck a gun in our face, type of thing. Being that it's California, I guess they expected us to go to jail or something. But the cop just said, good. And so that's, one of 3 stories that I have, that I shared with all these different people that I want to send this letter to. I just want the world to know that, guns are used for self-defense, and we can't continue to allow people to, paint them as the, this demon spawn that has to be eradicated from the earth. The Second Amendment, it was written plainly, shall not be infringed. So, but so the idea, like I said, it kept on evolving, and now I just want it to be a cultural movement where people send in their stories, either video or whatever. We can interview them, whatever, however it evolves to, and they are awarded this shirt. And I'd also like to, I kind of want to, I'm also on my list is I want to write to the USCCA and Gun Owners of America, to, maybe as another gift or whatever you want to, maybe get them insurance, for concealed carry, etc. So if there is another self-defense act that they, unfortunately have to go through, they will be covered. Anyway, that's the idea. That's what this podcast was about, or is about. But yeah, hopefully,
maybe send in a letter to the, what's that? CACC. What's the
USCCA is the United States Concealed Carry Association, or the one that does the insurance and stuff.
The insurance, yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Maybe they're the ones.
Yep, they're on my list.
They'd be a good one.
Trying to remember.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of places to send that letter to. It's just
that's the thing that
it's just
cracks
getting it read instead of buried under 50,000 other emails that those people get sent.
We were talking about this. Me and Bruce were talking about this stuff before we got on air, but I think this shotgun approach of sending it out to everybody like this will help, because all of these channels, or most of these channels, talk to each other.
That's true. It's just really the hardest thing is just to get it read.
Right. But,
it reminds me back in the day of sending out submissions for
comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, when I wanted to pencil comics, send them out to all the different companies. Like, well, I'll just send it out to everybody who makes comics. Eventually somebody's going to see it and write back.
Right.
I got form letter back when they just saw my envelope, looked at the address, typed it in, and then sent me the.
Right.
Probably didn't even look inside of it.
Yeah. But I guess I can go down the list of what I have as far as, I mean, I'm sure if anybody's out there watching right now,
I should write that down.
people should, you know, if you have a suggestion of other people. So we got
Where's my
Guns and Gadgets, which is a great channel. All he talks about is Second Amendment news. So he covers a lot of stuff from a simplified law perspective. Great channel, Guns and Gadgets. Timcast, everybody knows who Tim Pool is, or most everybody. He has a Timcast IRL. I listen to. I haven't missed an episode forever. Demolition Ranch. He was actually the very first podcast I ever got hooked on because he's just fun to watch. Kentucky Ballistics, he's a friend of Matt's, which is funny because they became friends later after they both had pretty big channels. Stephen Crowder, Louder with Crowder. Brandon Herrera, he's another friend of Matt's from Demolition Ranch. Coleon Noir, he's a lawyer in the Second Amendment. He was actually a spokesman for the NRA for a little while, but no longer. Freedom Tunes, it's a guy, Seamus Coughlin, I believe his name is. He does little cartoons, political cartoons. They're quite funny. Anthony Brian Logan, ABL. He does just conservative news type stuff. Officer Tatum, he's ex-police officer who also, like ABL, he does news. Warrior Poet Society, they are a group of guys that train people in real life how to use firearms and survive in the wilderness and all kinds of wonderful stuff. How to beat each other with sticks, how to, do all kinds of stuff. The Hodge Twins, or the Conservative Twins, as their channel is called. They're they're twin brothers that do comedy. They were stand-up comedians first, I believe, and they have their own podcast, and it's conservative viewpoint stuff. They're like The View, only on the right. TFB TV, he does mostly gun reviews. Awaken with JP, he's does mostly comedy stuff, where he talks about all kinds of things from making fun of woke people and stuff, etc. Slightly Offensive, that's all they do is make fun of woke people, and it is slightly offensive. PragerU, Dennis Prager is pretty much a hero of mine. He's a really well-spoken, well-traveled, respectable, talented. I mean, he's a conductor of music. He's just amazing. Anyway, the Gun Collective, they also do Second Amendment news. Gun Owners of America, they are what the NRA wishes they could be. Johnny B, he does news also. Project Veritas, if you guys don't know who that is, too bad. This was one that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. It's a website called Active Self-Protection. I'll tell you why that's important here in a second. I'll just finish the list. Glenn Beck, USCCA, and I'm sure there's more that we can add. But anyway, Active Self-Protection, they have something similar or maybe that's, I could say that's partly where I got an idea. Active Self-Protection, that's a really cool little podcast thing that they do. It's one guy, can't remember his name, sorry. Anyway, what he does is he shows video clips from around the world. It's just security footage of different things that happen to people. Some of it happens here in America, some of it happens overseas in Brazil. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Brazil. But it's, usually shows somebody walking into the camera frame where, like it's a grocery store or something, and a bad guy comes in with a gun, and somebody has to protect everybody, and it's, somebody shoots the bad guy, etc. And he likes to, show the video, and then he kind of reviews it and says what the shooter should have done, what they should have been aware of, because he talks a lot about situational awareness, which is, the bedrock of self-defense. Because if you're looking at your phone, walking to your car at night, you're just asking to be robbed, beaten, etc. You have to be aware of your surroundings. Anyway, but it's a great little channel.
This him, John Carrera?
Yeah, John Carrera, that's right. And he also teaches handgun safety stuff. But his channel's pretty fun to watch. But what I want is I want to set up a website where we can just gather all these stories from everyone, get people on video, telling their stories, sharing their, these, horrific stories in some cases. And so the world has a place where they can go and point and say, see, guns do save lives. So that's my idea. So right now we're working on, I've written a letter which kind of outlines the idea, and then I also, have written a paragraph in that letter that, is addressed to each one of these website podcasts, because for instance, Matt from Demolition Ranch, he owns a company called Bunker Branding, and they make t-shirts for a lot of these places. He makes t-shirts for Brandon Herrera. He makes t-shirts for Kentucky Ballistics, several different YouTubers. And I would like to ask for his help to actually produce the t-shirts. So I'm just trying to get in contact with all these people and give them this idea and see how far we can take it. Hopefully we can start, being part of cultural, affecting the culture. So that's the idea. And it's kind of funny because, with the stories and stuff that I write and that, Bruce draws or illustrates, we wanted to be part of the culture and affect culture with those stories, and that's still the plan. But I think this is a good thing to do too. Anyway, Bruce, do you have anything to say, or are we just?
I just letting you go.
Letting me yak.
There's not much I can add to that.
Yeah, I know. It feels, I think I've said before when I first wrote Shattered Time, I didn't write Shattered Time as a story. It started as a role-playing game. I was writing a role-playing game. I didn't even have a title. I wanted to write my own combat system. I wanted to write my own magic system, and I wanted to create a world where everything was happening. You know, you have to have that universe that you put everything in. But when you start creating things like magic and combat systems and all this stuff, you're basically creating rules for the universe that you're creating. And once you've established all those rules, you know, for instance, you know, magic users don't wear shoes. And if you've listened to my stories or read anything, you'll know why. But once you establish those rules and stuff, I had to establish how the world became the way it is, and that's when my mind just wouldn't stop. The story just poured into it like somebody was, opened my head up and just dumped it in. It's like, okay, here's your story, glug. I'm like, okay, wow. And then, with the other, what's it called? Town Called Liberty. All those stories, they're a little bit harder, but the ideas still feels like it just comes from somewhere else. Mostly because of what happens in the news nowadays. When you hear about transgender females competing in female sports and winning, there's a story right there. It's not hard to translate that to A Town Called Liberty. When people start talking about green energy and all this stuff, I actually had an argument with somebody the other day where I was talking about the gas prices, because at the time it had gone up to $5.18, and I was talking about inflation in general, because groceries that normally used to cost me $100 every week now cost me $170 every week. And so I had made this remark, that I don't think I can stand this Bidenflation anymore. And she says, well, it's never simple enough to blame one person for all this. And I guess that kind of set me off, because I started talking about all the oil leases and everything that he killed when he first got into office, and he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, and he shut down the oil leases in the Gulf, and he can't do any exploration on public land anymore, et cetera, and all the prices are based on oil speculators. And so the speculators immediately went, oh shit, there's no oil in America anymore. And so then suddenly the prices start to rise. And then Biden.
Don't forget, all that was done because he had to do it, because he re-signed the Paris climate.
Right. Well, that's where I'm getting to.
Oh.
So I said all that to her, and she said, "Well, I do know that all this stuff is necessary because we have to get off fossil fuels." And I was like, "So you would rather?"
Say great.
Destroy families. I've literally had to dig into my own savings now to pay for, basic human needs. And I'm not the only one out there. A lot of people are digging into their savings to pay for gas, to pay for groceries. And these people these far leftists are literally saying, no, this has been the plan the entire time. We're getting off fossil fuels. This is the way we're going to do it. Green energy is the future, and there's no stopping us now. Moo hoo ha ha ha. And it's like, the first story that we wrote for A Town Called Liberty, it was talking about green energy and how, I believe that the politicians of the world are, they'll make a promise, and even though all the evidence that the promise that they made could never happen, they'll make the promise and they'll just try and see it through. You know, and if they have to, they'll just lie to the to the American public. Oh yeah. Solar and wind energy, it's going to be the newest thing, and it's going to we'll be able to get off fossil fuels. It's like, I don't know. And you start looking at the stats, and you're like, what is it, 2% of the energy made in America is from wind and solar? And there's rolling blackouts in California all the goddamn time.
You ask her for $50 to pay for gas. Well, obviously, she has money to spend, right?
Right. Well, that's just it. I mean, I just couldn't understand. I'm like,
That's how you got
it. We can't talk anymore, because that's if
visited that video of them asking college kids if they'd be willing to share their GPA.
Right. Yeah, I like that old one.
That's a great one. But
that was God, how long ago was that? I think that wasn't that PragerU that did that?
I think.
Yeah. But yeah. Oh shit! I didn't put Ben Shapiro on that list. I need to put Ben. Gotta have Ben. Daily Wire. Anyway. I think mostly this video we can just call it name dropping, because that's all I'm doing is dropping every name that I can think of.
Ben Shapiro, yeah.
But I mean, all of
you
these...
have Crowder on there, right?
Yeah, but like all of these, the bigger names, they've all established these huge companies.
Who's that country music singer that has a pretty good channel these days? Oh my gosh.
He's political, or
yeah, he's very political.
He just talks about music, or wow.
No, he talks about politics most of the time.
Oh yeah, I guess I should.
I can't remember his name.
Maybe I just thought of something. Those Black Rifle Coffee guys are here in Utah.
Yeah. They would know all those guys. They've been on all their shows.
Fuck. I don't even know why I didn't.
And if you go down to where we did our concealed carry, they know the Black Rifle guys.
Right. Well, I actually met the Black Rifle guys when
I met
one of the businesses that I've ran as a hospitality management major was I ran a movie / bar here in Utah called Broovies. Ran it for like 5 years. And there was this horrible movie made on purpose. Horrible. It was a B-type movie. But it actually had what's that?
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo in it.
I've heard the story a couple times.
But it's this zombie movie, but it's made by the guys that run Black Rifle. But they did a showing at Broovies, when it first came out, and it was a big like party type thing, Yeah, but
brouhaha.
I mean, I guess I can say I met them, but I don't. It's not like we had a long conversation about anything.
Right. I was at that Ready Gunner.
Yeah.
And I met the guy. I didn't really talk to him much, but he was picking up a nice rifle that a company had sent to him. Right. It had it was nice. It was all in a case. It had the rifle. It had some magazines. It had, I think, a knife in it. But it also had a coffee mug, one of those long, like, big thermoses type thing for coffee with their brand on it and everything, and that they had set up for them, and just sent him this beautiful rifle. Beautiful rifle.
But yeah,
it's good to be the king.
But I've never
That's what happens when you're the king. You get sent good stuff for free.
But this business or whatever I'm talking about with this T-shirt website thing, I'm wondering. I get one of the questions I ask in the letter to all these different people is, should I run this as a nonprofit? I mean, is this something?
I think so. Maybe. I thought at first maybe we should you could just run it, but if we ran it as a nonprofit associated with everybody, whatever type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want this to sound as horribly capitalistic as it's going to sound, but it would give us a great name recognition that gives us the oh, by the way, we're putting out a book,
right? Exactly.
And we'd get people who would come and support us,
right,
on our book. And I don't want to. You never want to use charity to, like, oh, how are we going to sell books? Hey, let's come up with a charity that points people to our books. I mean, I literally just thought of that right now. That
because if you think about
it, would just send traffic our way, and
but PragerU's a nonprofit.
True, but and he writes a book and lets people know about it.
Right.
But did he start PragerU to point people to his books for sales, or did he start it to get information out?
I would actually love to read that the Rational Bible.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. It'd be interesting to read if he has what's called a white paper, which would be his initial his like constitution that he sat down and maybe wrote prior to starting PragerU. Right. What was his goals and aspirations for starting that?
Yeah.
It'd be kind of, I mean, he could tell you, and he's told you many times, but it'd be interesting to actually hear the exact very first. It was really great on Glenn Beck's show the other day where he pulled out that rough draft of the Constitution and actually showed you the handwritten rough draft of where it was put in there that that slavery, they wanted to get rid of it, and whose fault it was that it was still there.
Right. And
that was fascinating. We always blame the South, but apparently for 20 some odd years they had been trying to cancel slavery in the States, but King George kept saying no. It was the king that stopped the abolition of it, and probably part of that was due, and I'm going to stretch here, but probably it's because he was making bank off of it,
of course,
in England, because most of those boats came from England. Most of them were financed through the Rothschilds in England, and
Yep. Yeah.
I guess I need to finish my sentences better. Well, you know what?
Well, I know what you mean.
Well, we were talking about
Hopefully they do too.
We were talking about, because Tim said on his show that he wants to add more shows. Mm-hmm. So I went back and watched our last show that had the biggest numbers, which was
I watch all of ours.
The new show from this year.
Mm-hmm.
I went back. I haven't watched any of ours, like from start to finish. And so I actually sat and watched it. I was like, I think I don't explain myself sometimes enough, but I don't want to explain too much that.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that you're so used to talking to me.
That's true. And you already know most everything I'm going to say, so
right.
I don't have to finish everything out.
Mm-hmm.
Or I assume that people are listening understand everything that I'm talking about. But at the same time, I don't want to be like Tim was in the beginning. When he first started podcasting, my gosh, he had to try to explain every tiny little thing out, and I just get so. I would listen to the initial headline. I listened to the initial verb, and as soon as he started trying to explain it to me, boom, I'm gone. Because,
Right.
One of his main problems was this was Tim. This was my impersonation of Tim. So the way I look at it is if you were to really break this down let me explain it this way. So if you had 2 apples and 4 oranges, and you were gonna go, wait. Actually, this is much. If you were gonna,
Right.
and it would take him 5 or 6 starts. Oh man, just stick with the first one and go.
Right.
He used to drive me. He's gotten much better,
Oh yeah. Well, it's
but
funny,
he still has to do that. He still has to.
he does.
Let me explain it this way.
He does the Timcast, and then he does the Timcast IRL. And if you listen to just the Timcast thing, I don't know if he writes everything down ahead of time, but he basically is all he's doing is reading the news. There's no other people in the room. But it's funny. I think Timcast IRL, when he's talking to people, it holds your attention a lot better than him just kind of.
Oh yeah. Well, he because when he's just by himself, he tends to repeat over and over and over again, and he goes on long tangents.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's with everybody, somebody will jump in, somebody will, or he could probably look at somebody and somebody go like, this again, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, because I'm sorry, if I was on that show sometimes, some of the things that come out of those people's mouths at times, it'd be like, oh my gosh.
Well,
I wouldn't hold it back.
You know-
I'd be. They could ask me then, what's wrong with that? But it's like
for as much, what the heck's his name?
Ian.
Ian. Thank you.
He's gotten better, but he's getting.
For every time you complain about Ian, I think to myself, it's probably better to have that extreme other view.
It is at times. It is, but at times he comes off out of left field with stuff that's just like, and it's so freaking annoying because it's not even was on topic, and I know Tim loves it because it then maybe bounces the topic,
Mm-hmm.
reshapes it. It's interesting though to listen to these. I used to say this back about a year and a half ago, that listening to both of those two, Tim and Ian, would try to solve today's bureaucracy problems with more bureaucracy.
Yeah,
Well, we need the form. That's the problem right there.
that's changed.
You've already formed, right? That's
Right,
changed, right?
right.
They've stopped that, so they've learned that wrong. That you can't change bureaucracy with bureaucracy.
Right, fire with fire.
And that's what I mean. He's gotten better because he has learned where he doesn't understand something. He just keeps on this cycle of, well, the Fed does this and this and this. No, the Fed doesn't do shit. What the Fed does is does something and then sees whether you'll do it or not.
Right.
And if you do it and go along with it, it's the same thing you guys are trying to fight with the 2A stuff. Just say no. Well, just say no to the Fed stuff. Well, you can't because they... Oh, sure you can. Just say no.
Right.
But, it just drives me nuts because...
On the last Tim cast, and he's right, because they were talking about which president would you like to see get in there? It's DeSantis or Trump again, and the only way it would be good is if Trump got back in there and just started firing everybody.
Right.
And he's absolutely 100% correct about that, because Republicans forever, and this is my biggest problem with Republicans, is Democrats try to pass laws every second that they're in office. And, they do the shotgun approach, which is what I'm doing with these letters, just sending it out to everybody. But they just throw everything they can against the wall, see which will pass through the House, which will pass through the Senate, which will go all the way. And but at least you can say that the Democrats are doing that. They're writing laws and, sending it through. But the Republicans don't. Even when there was a Republican majority, they don't repeal any of these laws that we the people complain about. It's like if I had if it was a perfect world, the Republicans would hold the majority and they would go, oh, let's get rid of that NFA thing. You know,
Well-
let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. You know,
Something on that show they've said a couple of times, and it just sparked, is that somebody, they tell you now that the America you grew up on is no longer the America that you live in.
well, no, I mean,
But I wonder.
people have too short of a memory in this country, because I remember when health insurance was cheap.
Oh yeah, but
Everybody's like, well, yes, but Obama created universal health care. No, he didn't. He created a universal health insurance.
25%.
All the health insurance
hike.
companies now have all this power to
He
set
raised
the-
everybody's rates by 25%.
yeah.
Are you kidding? What he did was he loan sharked us all into higher rates.
Yep. And less coverage.
I've said it before. I worked at a place where, on paper or in the bylaws for the job, they wanted you to do 12.5 moves per hour, lumping pallet to trailer, 12.5 moves. If you got 10, nobody talked to you. That was because 12 was really pushing it. It doesn't seem like two more moves an hour but on a forklift and tight, cramped areas, it was actually very dangerous to move that fast.
Right.
So 10,
Take somebody's head off.
and not only that, but 10 got the numbers that they actually needed. And everybody was, boom, boom, and people worked more. When you had 12, it was hard for people to morale to actually hit it. Well, we had a guy come in and they wanted to redo the rate system. They said, all right, well, we're changing rate. Rate is going down to 11 moves an hour, but we're going to hold you accountable to 11.
Jesus.
So we sat there and looked around and went, wait, did they just raise it in an hour? 1 an hour on us? They did, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that he did. I'm going to make healthcare free for everybody. I'm just going to raise your
No. He
You're-
made it free for the poor.
for 25%. And even they don't get it for free, because sometimes when you subsidize your health care, they take it out of your tax return at the end. That's what they did for us on the first 2 years. So it wasn't free.
Right.
It was bullshit. But what I wanted to go back to with that whole, it's not the country that you grew up in, I don't know if Trump would be the one to go in and just say, you're fired. Maybe now he would learn his lesson, but I still don't know if he would do that.
Me neither.
And they said that they didn't think DeSantis would, but I think he would.
You think
Because-
DeSantis would be the one to clear the swamp?
Because he saw what happened to Trump and knows that's what's going to happen to him, and would have to be, you're gone. I would
God,
see
I
it
hope
that
so.
way better. But my thing is that I think Trump got there and thought that the infrastructure that was laid there, just whoever was the president, that's who they worked for. And all of a sudden, they stopped working for him. When he asked for something done, the paperwork got lost. The paperwork got shuffled somewhere else. People stopped taking phone calls. People started directing stuff to the wrong place, right? Trump didn't realize that the America he grew up in was gone.
Right.
I think that was the problem. And I still don't know if he believes that it's still there or not. Because it shouldn't have taken him more than a year or two to realize that you need to go. As soon as he saw what the DOJ started to do, you got to go.
Right.
You got to go. I mean, I keep going back to this story, and I think it's either in Ezekiel or it's in Isaiah, but I think it's in Ezekiel. I think it might be Isaiah in the Bible. But there was a coup that happened, and when they overcame the coup, and then the coup was all about whether they were going to live the commandments and blah blah blah, all this type of stuff. But there was this coup on the government. They squelched the coup, and they lined everybody up that was part of it, and they went down the line. They asked them, "Are you going to follow the rules, the laws of the land as stated?" And as any of them said no, they killed them on the spot.
Yeah.
Right? And then if they said yes, they made them covenant to him, which was back then your word was the only thing you had, right? Back then your word was your life. If you broke it, your life went away. And so they made them covenant that they would follow the rules. And it's like that with when he got in there. It's like you had to get those people out and put people in that would take that oath that they take to defend the Constitution from all threats, foreign real. And I know they thought somehow that Trump was the threat, and I don't know. It's amazing how they can think that, and yet Biden somehow is a paragon of virtue.
Well, yeah. The problem is here's one of the things that I think is the biggest problem. Here's the biggest problem is Democrats' power in the Senate and the House comes and goes, and the presidency comes and goes. You know, they're sometimes in power here, sometimes they're not. But their power in corporations, the media, pop culture, that stuff doesn't go away. And in the media, when Trump first got in, there was hundreds of stories that were just bullshit, made up things. You know, that very fine people on both sides thing. Totally nothing ever happened. He never said that. But they ran with that story, and they still run with that story. And it's like, you know, when you call them on their lies, they go, nope, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And since they control the media, and then since they control all of these things, we can never take them out of power. I mean, I don't know why, but in the upper echelons of all these major corporations, it's leftists that run these fucking companies.
Well, they did it strategically. I mean, it's funny to listen, and then here's another thing, like on Tim and them, and it'll eventually get fixed, I think. But you always hear them ragging on America about the CIA and the FBI and all this stuff and the horrible things that they do.
Thing. Seems like the left controls the FBI and the DOJ also.
Now, yeah. But here you go. Here's why those organizations were so important and powerful. Look, what they purposely put people into those positions, or made sure that the people who would eventually get in those positions believed the way they wanted you to believe. And so now they're in those positions, they're just going to status quo. This is, you know, when we were at Frito, they introduced diversity inclusion training. And when I first heard it, I thought it was great because it wasn't race-based. It was just their idea of diversity and inclusion was everybody out there knows how to run the company at their job probably a little bit better, or at least knows the way to help make things run smoother. Right? I mean, the forklift guy can understand that, hey, you know, doing this is just killing my rate every night. Oh, so how can we then you go into an action plan, you fix it, and you try to implement it and see if it works. Hey, it worked. Hey, it didn't work. Whatever. But that's what diversity and inclusion was. Now, boy, they got that hook in, and then as soon as they got in, then they started getting people in that you know, that was the only that was the only thing that company had to focus on was diversity and inclusion.
Right.
And then all they had to do is change the parameters of what they meant by diversity and inclusion. And now that's how we got to where we are now. Why? Did you get milkshake?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Come on.
Man, Mom's trying to put 4,000 calories on me today. What are you doing?
Close it.
Please.
Yeah,
If I don't, he'll just come back.
Right.
that's true. That's true. It's just gonna warm up the area. Man, she brought me milkshake. Well, she brought me a hamburger earlier and a big old, like, soda. That big old
Your
soda.
life is way too rough, man.
Well, she keeps telling me that I can't go nowhere. I can't die. You know, I've had these CPAP for the heart thing,
Right.
you know, and I've been taking this lisinopril for the heart, and I can't go nowhere, but she's going to heart attack me out pretty soon. She's going to heart attack me out and put that one up to 500 pounds.
Darling, we must talk about the relationship.
It's pretty good, yeah. You are a good woman.
You are a good woman,
Although,
but you might be the Antichrist.
the Antichrist.
Anyway,
Son of a bitch, that's a good movie. Look at that. We quoted that thing 4 times already today. Well, not on the podcast, but he did it like 3 times before we even started. I was telling him, is there a better movie that has more quotes out of it?
I still think Tarantino has a lot of good quotes in his movies.
In his movie. But tell me a movie that has more quotes out of it than Tombstone. Think of all the good ones. There's that one you talked about. You can stand there and bleed all day. Pull that smoke wagon.
Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
Smoke I am.
I said, throw down, boy.
Yeah.
Gonna do something or stand there and
Well,
bleed.
why I am
I'm
mistaken. You are an oak. Then later on, some oak I am. I'm here, Huckleberry.
Yep. I don't know. There's lots of movies that are good quote movies.
There's a lot of good quotes, but how many out of one movie? That's what
I quote Dumb and Dumber all the time. Farrelly Brothers have some good quotes.
What can I think about?
That's a
Dumb and
beautiful
Dumber?
accent. New Jersey.
I know there's stuff from Dumb and Dumber that I say I just can't think of.
Austria.
That was
Well,
that,
good day, mate.
That was Pet Detective. Alrighty then.
Right.
But Farley
Put
Brothers,
another
man, I tell
shrimp
you,
on the barbie.
not the other day, a while back, I went on a Farley Brother marathon.
Really?
Me, myself, and Irene.
Something about Mary.
Something about Mary.
Yeah, I love that one.
I can't think of. But Me, Myself, and Irene. I almost like that one better than Something About Mary. But,
Stuck on You.
Stuck on You? Oh, is that the one with
Yeah, Matt Damon.
Matt Damon and Greg Kinnear?
Greg Kinnear.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
like-
one.
Hey, let's take that guy who, was nominated for an Oscar and put him in a movie where he plays a conjoined twin.
But that reminds me of so you know how that happens. That reminds me of Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Because Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are they're at that bar and look at each other and go, man, nothing worse than when a cameo has to come back to bite in the ass, right? Because they had to be in the movie because he made them.
Or it's like, or when your friend comes back and tells you that, you have to be in his movie because, he owes you payback. They stare at the camera.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Oh, crap. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been watching, I just got done, watched all 4 seasons so far of Yellowstone that Austin works on.
That's still truly embarrassing that I haven't watched that movie. Well, I watched a
Especially
clip,
since you know.
but, the DP is a friend. That's terrible.
DP, that's the
Director of photography.
Director of photography.
Yes.
Well, he has shot some beautiful stuff. They've done.
He does.
They've done.
I mean, it is stunning. The
They-
cinematography of that fucking show.
It is. They really. The only bad part about it is, and what's funny is it's just a ranch, but in your mind you think of it because it's a giant parcel of land that they have. So in your
I watched
mind,
a clip of them beating up some bikers,
yeah.
but that was the only clip.
Oh, that was great. That was a great scene though. But in your mind, you think the ranch, you think the amount of cattle they have is one of those giant outfits, you know. And it's not. It's just a medium-sized ranch.
How many head of cattle do they have, or do you know?
A couple thousand.
So like 1,500 head, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's not a giant. But you think because the way he runs the state, but he's gotten himself politically into everything to keep the land because everybody has come after the land.
Right.
He's trying to tell the one son this, he's telling him that they want to buy it or whatever, and he's like, you don't know the value of it. He goes, no, son, I know the value of it because I know that if you had all the money in the world, the first thing you do with it would buy this land. That's the value of it. Is he understands how they don't want the ranch, they want the land.
Right.
And so that's what everybody's trying to take the land away from them. He's trying to hold on to, but that biker scene.
Well, it's funny.
You know, when you fall. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was saying that here in Utah, coming from a ranching family, it's funny because in Yellowstone, in that TV show, in the fictional environment, he owns all that land.
Mm-hmm.
But here in Utah, ranchers have to use government land.
Right.
If you don't use BLM land, which is not Black Lives Matter,
Right.
it's Bureau of Land Management. If you don't use BLM land, you can't have cattle. I mean, it's the best way to feed. Anyway,
Right. So exactly, and it's like they show this one kid have to go down to Texas, and they show the outfit he works at. Now that's what I think of a giant ranch, stalls as far as the eye can see. You know, blah 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 blah. But nobody cares about that land. Nobody wants that piece of land
right? They want
because it's
pretty
just
land.
flat, ugly. You know, nobody want. But his land literally butts up against Yellowstone National Park. That's why it's called the Yellowstone. But the biker thing, you know, you follow characters long enough that you know what they're gonna do in a situation, right? Well, these guys are coming back from doing this really good thing, and there's 4 of the ranch hands, and they see these bikers out in this field. They go out to the field.
And the fence has actually been cut.
Fence has been cut. And they ask them, "You're not supposed to be out here." Blah blah blah. Do this, that, this. Get off, and they start a fight. Right? They start beating up on them pretty good. Well, come the head ranch hand, and his name is Rip, and it's like these bikers got their bikes all lined up on the
Right.
outside, and you're like,
He runs them down.
Rip's gonna take that F-350, and he's just gonna plow. And there he goes, plows half those bikes, and I just knew that's what was gonna happen. Gets out of that thing, and I'm like, he didn't pull a gun out. What's he got in his hand? Some kind of a stick, you know? And I'm like, oh, man, he takes out a branding iron, just clubs the first guy across the head with it, and then they just beat the snot out of these guys. Did you see the follow-up clip to that, though?
Yeah. When Costner.
When they come back and Costner's waiting for him?
Yep. Makes him dig a grave.
Oh, man, you're not going to do this to us. Oh, man. Oh, he's ruthless. But it's interesting because I think on the Emmys, they announced I think he got a nomination for Best Actor, whatever, and they said it, or maybe it was for Best Show. but that he's holding his crime organization together. It's not a crime organization. I mean, they may do things that you think are criminal. It's just about a guy who has to do these things to keep his land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I need to watch it. And then, of course, they started that
18.
the prequel.
I watched the first episode of that.
I think it was mostly just because Sam Elliott needed something to do.
Which is funny because you think he's the main character. And he's not. I thought he was.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was going to be the descendant
Right.
of of Costner. I thought he was
Right.
going to be his great grandfather or something, but he's not. He plays a Pinkerton agent
Oh, jeez.
who apparently you could hire Pinkertons to.
Pinkertons were I'm a love history, but in my opinion, Pinkertons were the most badass motherfuckers on the planet.
Right. But apparently you could hire Pinkertons to lead wagon trains. So him and this other guy are been hired on by some Russian immigrants, Russian Jewish immigrants, I think, who are going to Oregon.
Right.
And if you know anything about Oregon, there's a lot of Russians up in Oregon, Russian Jews. But they, the Duttons go with them.
Hmm.
And that's how they find out. That's how they link the two characters together. He just wants to go north. He doesn't know where he's going yet. All he knows he's going north. He doesn't know he's going to the Yellowstone. Doesn't know the plot of land that he's going to carve out or anything like that. But the problem, though, is on Yellowstone they keep showing you flashbacks to things that have happened. It's not particularly but happened in the 1880s back there, that prevalent to the storyline today. And it's like, oh, but that kind of tells me what's happened before. It's like, stop doing that. Until I watched all of 1883.
Right.
So I think you should have watched that before episode 4, because I think they did that on episode 4 to introduce 1883 so that you could watch them companion. But that's been a really good show. There's few shows
I can't wait.
that pay off the comeuppance.
I can't wait till people geek out on our stuff.
Yeah.
I just watched the last season of Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yeah.
The writers in there must be doing some type of drugs, because the twists and turns in that thing is just amazing. But, it's always been.
Is there a new season? Is there a third season?
Third season.
Oh, I haven't seen. We got rid of Netflix,
Mm.
so I only had first 2.
And then
They finally
I'm
just
waiting for Cobra Kai to come.
did. They finally
out.
just kill off what's her name? The one that keeps destroying the world over and over again.
Ellen Page,
Yeah,
the actor.
Elliot.
Right. Elliot.
I don't know.
Every time I think about Ellen Page, I think about her playing Kitty Pryde in the X-Men.
Oh, that's
She
right.
was the cutest fucking girl, man. Anyway, but she's not dead.
That's such a
Basically,
annoying character.
every world, because they keep jumping it through time,
right.
which is, kind of like jumping through a dimension, because each timeline that they jump to is different somehow, because, choices are what matter in time. And so, but yeah,
I really dug the Time Commission agents in the second episode.
yep,
They were freaking hilarious.
yep. So yeah, this is
I like that story. I like them, and I kind of liked the guy that talked to dead people. Liked his story quite a bit.
He actually becomes more powerful.
Oh, in that second season, he really started tapping into what that could really do.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, he, I don't. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
He's immortal.
Oh, really?
Yes. So in this
can
one,
he separate his soul out of his body?
Well, when he dies,
and then it died, and then come back into it.
When he dies, he goes to a void, basically, and he can. It's kind of his happy place or whatever, but he can walk back into the real world at will.
Really?
So he can die and then just walk back in.
To his same body or different body?
Same body. So yeah.
But what if it is still mortally wounded, or does it not matter?
It heals.
It heals?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Because in this one, the way he discovers it is he accidentally gets impaled with a thing through his heart, and then after
somebody has to fix him.
After he discovers that he can come back, and that it will heal, the old man, the father of that timeline, they kind of become friends, and he takes him out, and he kills him over and over and over and over and over and over again to see how fast he can come back. Because at first, it takes a half an hour. Second time, 20 minutes, et cetera, and they work it down to where he can
really
come back.
Wow, that's cool. I thought he'd end up being a cool character. I mean, they really made the kid that can turn into the tentacles, the Kraken thing, or whatever. He ended up when he was merged with the other character. All of a sudden, they went aggro. So that's cool. I don't know. Did Mr. Hyde get any stronger, or the guy's turning into
monkey boy?
Yeah, monkey.
Yeah, he's still him. It's interesting. I don't know if I want to destroy everything.
Nah, we can.
But yeah, I've watched that.
I think you'd like Yellowstone.
It
was kind of slow at the beginning, but all the time watching it, it made me feel like I was watching a Longmire to a degree. Same type of core value.
Right. The thing is, what channel do they show that on? What horrible service do I have to sign up for?
I think they aired it on Paramount Plus.
Right.
But now you stream it off of Peacock. So Peacock has Yellowstone, and then we had to do Paramount Plus to get 1883. Well, she did it because she was watching 90210 again.
I think what I'll do is I'll just
you want to watch programming in action?
All I have to do is I think I should just call up Austin and say, hey, can I get all the could you give me a bunch of DVDs? Thanks, man.
He might have them, yeah.
Well, of course I'll have them.
Well, you go back and watch 90210, and it's just amazing how many times it's like, you want to know how we got to where we are now? That's how it starts right there. That's how that starts. That's how that starts. Right. Brandon was the perfect social justice warrior on that show. They all are social justice warriors. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing is they're all completely horrible people.
Right.
They virtue signal about, like Brandon, I'm not going to write for a paper who advertises cigarettes. Because cigarettes kill people, but I'm going to cheat on my girlfriend. And then I'm going to cheat on this girlfriend. I'm going to cheat on that girlfriend. He has such a moral high ground, Mm-hmm. Every one of them has a moral high ground they stand on, and then turn around and just do most selfish, despicable things.
Yep.
All in the name of social justice. And it's amazing how you can see every time we talk about on this show, we talk about how do they justify doing this when they're doing these other things. Mm-hmm. And it's right there. Because they told you at the beginning, you don't have to be a good person to be a social justice warrior. The other side says, no, you need to be a good person in order to, from, the fruits of your labor, with the fruit of the tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, no, I can plant onions over here, and then I'm going to go pick apples off your tree.
Right.
See, I'm good. No, you're a smelly onion, but I have an apple.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm an apple, I planted apples, or whatever. But
Well,
yeah.
Well, like we've said before, I think when it all comes down to it, left versus right is one says the ends justify the means, the other one, they lead this moral path, where they won't fight at all, even if they know it's the right thing to do, because they don't want to make waves.
Well, a lot
You
of
don't
it,
want to fight against the evil. You just want to make sure that the evil, kind of remains over there.
yeah.
We don't want to just blast the evil until it's gone. We'll live and let live. We'll just let it do what it wants to do.
Well, there's the dichotomy in the Bible, the teachings. When the soldiers came to collect Christ to arrest him from when he was at the Garden of Gethsemane, they came to arrest him, and Peter pulls out his sword and he cuts off one of the soldiers' ears.
Wow.
And he's like,
Nice guy.
"You're not taking them," type thing. And Christ put the sword down, took the ear, put the ear back on the guy's head, healed it, and said, "Let me go." So, it says, when they strike this cheek, you offer the other cheek. So you're not supposed to just outwardly, but at the same time, he goes into the temple, and there's guys in there selling selling souvenirs of visiting the temple. The money changers is what they called it, but I'm assuming they're selling probably menorahs and
False
this or
idols.
that, false stuff. Or not even just false stuff, but just I visited the temple. I visited the temple, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt, right? He type stuff, and he goes in and turns over all the tables, whips them, kicks them out. And so it's like, wait a second. So on one side, fight and stand up for your values. Wait, don't fight and stand up for, you know what I mean? So I think these people have a tendency to not understand when you're supposed to fight and when you're not supposed to fight. And so because of that, you kind of get stuck in a in the middle, not doing anything.
Right.
We're kind of plagued by our own our own teaching.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're right. Because a lot of times, and I've had somebody tell me this, family member, it's like, and it's like the same thing when every time there's a cop shooting, they tell you, just comply.
Mm-hmm.
Either just comply, or if you weren't doing something wrong in the first place, you wouldn't be having an interaction with the cops.
Yeah.
Right?
Tell that
So-
to all the people that are in jail from January 6th.
Right.
They complied.
Right. But if they hadn't gone down there, crossed over the lines and gone in, they wouldn't be having the problems. I'm not saying whether it was legal or not. I'm just saying that's the argument, right? They say, well, as long as you're doing the things that are right, you don't have to worry. As long as you're keeping your commandments and keeping the laws of the land, you don't have to worry about anybody coming for you or your stuff. Well, that's not gonna work anymore
Nope.
because they are coming for things. They're coming for your kids' education. They're coming for your kids' morality. They're
Right.
coming for your kids' chastity. I'm sorry, but when these people put on strip shows
Oh yeah.
and walk around in
Encourage people to shove
And-
money into the little kids' pants.
leather Speedos around your 11-year-old kid, I'm sorry, that's a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
And you stand up and you applaud this stuff.
Well, that's the one thing that
You can't just sit back anymore and say, well, I went to church on Sunday. I did my home teaching. I took the sacrament. I'm good.
Well, the thing that
You can't do that no more.
the thing that I don't understand is trying to remember if it was a comedian or if it was a gay comedian or if it was just I don't remember, but it was a gay spokesman of some kind a long time ago, and I'm talking about when I was young. I'm almost 50 now. Anyway, when I was really young and I lived in California, and when I was there for high school, every year San Francisco has a pride parade.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one gay conservative who was talking about he doesn't understand what those parades have to do with gay people in real life. Because he was gay, he was married to his partner, who was also a man, and they lived a very normal life. They, you couldn't tell them apart from anybody else. And, they went to work, they came home, they ate dinner together, et cetera, et cetera. What he couldn't understand, and a thing that I don't understand is why is pride so
Jinx.
sexualized?
Right. Well, I think
When you go to a pride parade in California and San Francisco, everyone is naked. People are literally fucking on the corner. And nobody does anything about it. It's just the way it is.
right.
It's just pride. And I'm like, I agree with this gay man's view of it. It's like he doesn't understand how that helps the gay cause.
It doesn't. It's I think it's exactly what's happening today. You say one thing, but it means something else.
Right.
Gay pride, they say it's a pride gay, but it's actually free sex pride
Right.
or free sex parade. It's
Perversion parade.
but that's under the preview of free sex.
Right.
So like all, what was that movie? Logan's Run.
Mm-hmm.
He's comes home and he has this thing where he's looking for a partner to have sex with or something, or just looking for somebody, and it's like Tinder but holographic, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes across this guy, and this guy's like, well, if you didn't want to have sex with me, then why are you on the service?
Right.
Sorry, man. So in that timeline type of idea, you're just, as long as you're in the mood, you're supposed to just be able to have sex with whoever you want.
Right.
At any
That was
time.
the same type of thing in Barbarella.
Right. Well, that was more just, that was just the 70s free sex. If you're in the mood, have sex. But this was not just in the mood, have sex. This was in the mood, you have sex. Straight, gay,
Whatever.
lesbian, whatever, right? Whatever you want. So And it's actually funny. I watched one movie one night. It was a bad movie, but it was about in the future when it is just free love, right?
Right.
You get all these kids around. They're supposed to be getting ready to have a group sex thing. And they find this old, like, movie, old porno type of movie. And they put it in. It's more like one of those old Cinemax type things, but it's from the 70s, where this girl keeps wanting to have a monogamous relationship with a certain guy. And it's funny how that's supposed to be shown as antiquated. That's an out-of-date, antiquated practice.
Right.
But at the same time, they keep showing the crowd, the group, and they're like, wow, I wish I could connect with somebody like that. Wow. And it's like, wait a second. Wait, is this supposed to be a free love video?
Right.
Or is this actually about monogamy? Wait,
Well, yeah.
I didn't know what was going. It was weird. I didn't understand what was happening.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you get to one extreme, you want to go back to the other. Then the other side tightens down so tight that people go to the other side. And that's our problem is you never just teach the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You never just teach, hey, you know what? It's just like driving a car. Rather you not drive a car till you're 16. I know you can do it when you're 12. I know you can do it when you're 14. But I just would like you to wait till you're 16 so that when you drive it, you're more responsible about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with parents teaching about sex. You know, yeah, you can do it at these early, but I would really appreciate, you will find life easier if you wait and find somebody to have it here. But then there's enough people out there that says, oh, just go have fun. And then you get just wild swings back and forth of different,
Right.
you know, free love, just do it whenever and however you want. Does that, but then you're anti-abortion. Wait, you got to have, you know, there's like consequences to this stuff. You can't just run around and not think. And that's probably the one thing that we don't teach anymore is thinking.
That's for sure.
Maybe that's our problem.
But, I mean, you're right. It's one of the things that is never mentioned in the whole transgender or LGBTQ plus AI, whatever the hell that they keep on adding to, is there's a large population of the straight community, although they'll probably have their own pronouns and everything also, where they're into that, you know, polyamorous, you know, sleep with multiple partners, you know, that's just normal now, type of lifestyle. And they have completely just blended into that, you know, pride type thing. They go to the pride parades and they're naked also. You know, they may not be gay. They're just, you know, polyamorous. You know, so it's. But once again, I just don't understand how being naked in public and grooming our kids. Well, I guess naked in public. I understand how grooming our kids helps their cause, because the next generation and the next generation and the next generation are going to be so open to all these ideas that, you know,
Well, if
pretty
there's
soon MAP is going to be the next thing.
if there's one thing Hollywood has taught us,
You know what MAP is, right?
I think it's pedophiles, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mature,
Mature.
attracted person.
Minor
attracted person.
Minor
Yes.
attracted person.
Minor
Yeah.
attracted person. Yes.
Well, one thing Hollywood has taught us is that men are attracted to 20-somethings. 20-something-year-old beings.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a boy or a girl.
Right.
But men want young. So if you can start grooming now, you can have some later. And they need to widen out that dating pool. And if you don't believe that, change my mind. And you can't sit around in a leather Speedo watching some 11-year-old boy walk up and down a catwalk, taking clothes off of himself, winding up in their Speedo, and not tell me you're not objectifying them
Yeah.
for your pleasure.
Oh yeah. It's that's I don't know if that's a good thing.
And what do
but
you do? You hide behind your makeup. So you hide your identity behind makeup. You're doing it with the mask on. That makes it even creepier. You sick fuck.
One of the things that, I guess you can say it's kind of a good thing. They're just out in the open now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Maybe it's...
All that's going to do is going to make communities consolidate.
Oh, yeah.
All it's going to do is force people to move to communities. Mm-hmm. You know, in the Bible it says in the end days there will be cities of light that hold up the Judeo-Christian value that's in the Bible. Mm-hmm. There will just be these few cities throughout the world, these cities of light that people will try to gravitate to because they know that in those cities will be safe havens,
right,
from these things.
What's funny to me is,
that's if you believe that stuff.
Let's say,
and it's funny how...
Let's say that the Bible is just a book that somebody wrote, wasn't the Word of God, etc. What's funny to me is, it's kind of like the whole Alex Jones thing. There's so many things that they got right and that is coming true type of thing. And what's funny is, in the beginning they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah, and I don't know how well, because I haven't read that part, or maybe I did and I don't remember it, but they never really describe Sodom and Gomorrah, those towns. But it sure would be easy to describe them now.
Well, I think they don't describe them for a reason. They don't want you to have a blueprint of what it is, but...
We're getting one. We're putting that blueprint together right now.
Right. I mean...
Shit.
Well, that's what's funny. I was going to say the almost the exact same thing was you can chalk that crap up to literature, but it sure is spooky how much of that stuff's coming about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's coming about with all your efforts to make it not be that. You know what I mean? That's just literature. We're doing this. This is human nature. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, those crazy old people way back then seem to know exactly what you're, and why is that? Because human nature hasn't changed since. There's a great movie called Being Human with Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. My wife hates it because it's a slow movie. It really is. It's slow. It's probably not. It's probably boring for most people, but it is a fascinating movie. It shows a man, Robin Williams plays the same man, but it shows a man in prehistoric times. It shows a man during the French Revolution. Missing one, or maybe it's just three time periods, and then modern day. And whether the guy in prehistory was trying to protect his daughter from a saber-toothed tiger while trying to find something for them to eat and find safe lodging for the night, to a man in the the French Revolution who was just trying to get back to his family to make sure that they had the money to feed themselves and have a place to stay, to the guy in New York City who was hustling his butt with a flour company to, just run the business so he could make sure that his family has something to eat and have a roof over their safe place to stay. It didn't matter what time period, just mattered the what it took and what your obstacles were to get those things to happen.
Right. So
whether or not somebody wrote something 4,000 years ago and said, if you keep going on this trajectory, this is how your society is going to end.
Right. Well, I just thought of a story. It's not really a story. Here's a theory. Because me and you are both fans of Randall Carlson.
That's funny. What he said that, he looked at me on the screen,
right,
on the screen that we have up here. So when he said it, I was looking over at him, but he said it to me over there, and I was like,
anyway,
you really are you talking to me?
Me and you are both fans of Randall Carlson, and the whole Göbekli Tepe, that proves that men lived 12,000 years ago, and there was some kind of society, fairly advanced society that lived back then, and we don't know how advanced they were, because there was an impact from a meteorite, is what the theory is, caused all this damage, caused global cooling, ice age, blah blah blah, killed everybody off. Here's my theory. The Bible, or versions of it, were written before, and all it was a book on how that group of humans died out.
Well, what's kind of fascinating is, what's fascinating is
the Sodom and Gomorrah thing.
Mm-hmm.
What if the type of those cities that they describe, didn't really describe very well, but these cities of debauchery, what if that's what
New York?
What if that is what man is always destined to become?
I think that is, because even in our history timeline, we see it with Sodom and Gomorrah. We've seen it with Greece. We've seen it with Rome. Mm-hmm. Anytime that they've gotten so progressive, whether it was God that destroyed it or they destroyed themselves from within, that has been the constant downfall of empires over.
And that was,
as far as the other stuff goes,
it before, and a lot of people have mentioned it before. As societies near their end, before a cataclysmic collapse, you see a lot more transgender, gay, etc., etc.
Well, that
and
probably
even in monkeys,
yeah,
frogs, different animal species, when they reach a certain population, monkeys will turn to homosexuality, because they still want the pleasure, but it's not for breeding.
Well, that's one of the things why some people believe that we'll cap out at 9 billion.
Right.
But I was gonna say.
But yeah,
well, that's one thing I've had they talked about this idea that humanity has reset itself a couple of times. In the Bible, it reset itself once with the flood, right?
Because if there's a creator, and the creator, we look at the world that he's created, and everything is in this balance, predators and prey. They cull each other, and that's what keeps everything in this perfect balance. Pollinating trees, etc., etc. All that stuff seems. But then, the Creator, according to the Bible, wanted to create something in His own image, and so He created man. And unfortunately, gave man the brain to which was this great gift. Allowed us to reason and create art and create all these different things. But there was no animal that could cull the herd of man, that group. So what if the Creator built it into us to where we're always going to destroy ourselves? And we just reach a certain size, we fuck each other over, everybody dies, and then the survivors crawl out of the ooze, start over as cavemen, and the thing repeats.
Yeah,
over and over and over and over again.
So I think that's kind of an argument that. So in the Book of Mormon, there's a scripture that says, "There's opposition in all things," and that comes down to just every little thing you do. There's a struggle behind it. Sometimes just picking something up and dropping it. And you lose your temper about it, or this or that. Kid pushes a drink over and spills it in your lap, and you get all upset. Just opposition where people want to justify Satan, saying that, well, didn't there have to be the Satan figure in order for Christ to come back and redeem everybody from sin? And I was like, well, no, because you could sin against God's and the spiritual being that's supposed to be inside you, that can supposedly be the perfect being. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with in the Hindu, with the Namaste, I greet the God within you type thing. It's the idea that you're sinning against that perfect ideal of yourself in a sense. And so you don't need an external person to put obstacles in your way, because there's obstacles in everything you do. Mm-hmm. But people tend to think that this idea that Satan rebelled and it needed to happen, and so it's that we can justify his acts.
Right.
It's like, no, what he did was wrong. It's bad. So I almost think the same thing. It's like, I don't think God built into anything, because then that would go against his nature.
But I guess my question would be, did the people from Göbekli Tepe, was it the impact that killed them off, or did they kill themselves some way? Did they get technologically advanced enough to blow themselves up?
Oh, I don't know. All we know from Göbekli Tepe is the reason why we believe that they're so advanced in years is because on one of the stelas, they mapped stars that mapped the solar system back to 12,500 years ago, mm-hmm. and recorded a meteor impact, or no, it just an object in the sky. Mm-hmm. And then Carlson said he believes that object must have been the impact that hit in the Younger's Dryas in 12,500 years ago up in Canada, mm-hmm. or melting 12 miles of ice or something, 2 miles of glacial ice or something like that, in an instant,
plus
creating a mass flood that went down mm-hmm. through the Americas. And what's quite fascinating is you get higher up just enough that you can see that as you look down through Idaho, North Dakota, all that stuff, it looks like a wash happened. like
Well, yeah.
just this wash
you
come down
can't
through.
walk around Utah and like the most popular parts like Moab and stuff, and not go, well, this looks like this used to be a fucking ocean.
Right. Well, but it's hard to see that from the ground level.
Yeah.
But he has gone with drones, and he goes up, and what was just a canyon cut out with the river running through it. As you go up, you can. All you have to do is been playing with your hose out in the front in mud long enough
Right.
to see how it
Canyons,
cuts.
Right.
And all of a sudden you go up and you realize, oh my gosh, you can see how that water had to have just rushed down through a canyons, like or cause that to just carve out. And
Yep.
so what else is recorded in all the stelas, and the fact that they've only uncovered a tenth of Göbekli Tepe. There are dozens more of those sites. We just can't get in there to dig them up. A, they don't have the people to do it. And B, the government's controlling it, and I think it's a, yeah, and because, well, it's kind of fascinating about that information. It's like a tenth of it's put away, right? I mean, a tenth of it's known, and then it says in the Book of Mormon, that talks about the fact that when Joseph received the gold plates, 2/3 of it were sealed, were bound somehow.
Right.
And when he asked Moroni, the angel, about it, he said that the knowledge in there that we weren't ready for, it will be revealed later, but it was sealed off. And it's kind of fascinating how what information is there, but is sealed off to us in a sense. Because I was looking at that stela, and I see the cougar, the animal, and I see the bird, and the first thing that comes into my mind is not constellations. But when somebody who's thinking in the right way sees constellations, and all of a sudden they start overlaying stars on it, it's like, wow, that's the exact way the heavens are. And then it's like, okay, so when were those placed in that spot? And they just start dialing back on those apps, and then bam, 12,500 years ago, those constellations were in that part of the sky. And somewhere around over here was an object that they saw that wasn't supposed to be there.
Right.
That's crazy. And what's interesting, and here's my rant from his rant earlier. So Joseph Smith translated some scrolls that were found in a casket from a mummy, which they call the Pearl of Great Price. And in there, Abraham writes, and he talks a lot about the stars and the heavens, meaning the stars. And it's fascinating that he puts so much emphasis on reading the stars or knowing the stars and the constellations. I don't know. He didn't say anything about the constellation, but just knowing the stars and knowing how and when things happen. Obviously, he was foretelling of when Christ came and that there'd be a new star and blah, blah, blah. But Göbekli Tepe is a perfect example of that ancient understanding of the stars and why it was important to map them and keep track of them. What other things do those stelas tell us happened?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want to draw people running around in tight outfits and punching people. So, instead of going and learning about that, digging it up and reading and translating and stuff. I've always thought that'd be a fun job too, but
yeah, it's amazing how we went from a T-shirt to this.
Right. Well, and I've said this before a long time ago that the idea that Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock believes that Earth has civilization reset itself maybe 5 or 6 times. in history?
Possible.
The Bible at least says twice, right? Before the flood and after the flood.
Right.
So the Bible says at least twice. Randall seems about 5 or 6. And my thing was, it's quite fascinating that the Bible is very patriarchal. From the get-go. Adam and Eve submit to Adam. Blah, 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 blah. It almost seems like that when you let Eve in charge of Adam, that's when civilization gets wiped out. I ain't saying that's how it is. I don't want to be no male chauvinist pig. But it's interesting that the book that we predate and go all the way back to the beginning of our time, what's the one foundation, most important foundation? And it has to be a patriarchal system. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's quite fascinating that things in this country sure turned around when we gave women the right to vote. I just got to shut down.
Down with the patriarchy.
Down with the toxicity.
But yeah. Seems like we always get into these deep philosophical things. But it's all related to stories, and that's what's important.
Well, I think that's probably the difference in the type of people. Because when you get into the deep things, you have to ask both sides of questions.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to, was it this? Was it that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it forces you to actually confront issues and problems. Other people just want to stay at the surface, plug their ears, and close their eyes, and yeah. You know.
Yeah.
And have any of you noticed lately when they show pictures of these protesters that they look like the KKK people they showed back in the 80s when they would show somebody like, yeah, them people, they ain't gotta be around here no more, and you just look at them and you're like, wow, that looks like some white trash.
Well,
And now you look at these protesters and they look in their eyes too, they're like, there's nothing behind there, there's nothing going on.
the thing that cracks me up is when I grew up, it was during the punk rock era, and everybody was trying to be punk rock, and they were, they had this mohawks and the spiky hair, and they had a definite fashion that they were going for, and but they were violent, and they did stupid shit like randomly going and beating people on the street, etc. All the stuff that happens now. But what's funny is when you start to talk to punk rock people or even individuals now, they for some reason consider themselves these unique snowflakes. Nobody else is like them. They're an individual that's truly unique. And then you're like, you pan the camera back and you see all their friends and they look exactly the same. And it's like, there's nothing unique about you guys at all. Y'all nowadays have blue, green, or pink hair. And you think that
20 piercings,
and you have a
Tattoo or two.
1,000 piercings, and 100 tattoos. You call yourself asexual or whatever, and now you're using pronouns of the stupidest sounding things ever. And it's like, and you still think that somehow you're unique. And it's like, well, to me, it seems like you guys all have this group think mentality, and there's nothing unique about you at all. And there was nothing unique about the punk rockers that I hung out with when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm. Or the suits.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just ridiculous, you know. And, you know, you guys create these echo chambers where, you know.
What makes you unique is what me and Marty are able to sit here and do. Not have to agree on everything, but be able to have a conversation about deep, dark, deep philosophical ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we're philosophical.
It's like,
Maybe we're on a hidden episode of Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, and we're not that smart.
here's another quote from a movie that was good. It was about a real dude, Patch Adams, when he was in college, and his roommate accused him of cheating, and he said, you know, several things to his roommate, but at one point he's like, do you think that you have to go through life and be an asshole to everybody, you know, and that's what makes you successful? And the guy goes, yes. When I get to a hospital and my life is on the line, I want the doctor that studied hard and was an asshole to everybody, and that's the guy that's going to save my life because he, you know, studied hard all his life and blah, 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 blah. And Patch Adams says, you know, starts to walk out of the room, and he says, I have to remind myself of how young you are, that you think being an asshole makes you unique or special. That's absolutely true, and it holds up across time.
Well, you know what that is? That's the feminist what talking point. That's how they.
Yes.
When
they're
say,
the only ones that are serious because they're screaming their head off.
No. If a man is ruthless in business, he's just a tycoon. But if a woman is, she's a bitch.
Right.
No. If a man's an asshole in business, he's an asshole.
Right.
And people know he's an asshole.
Yep.
But if he's ruthless, like, and competent, then he gets the success. If a woman is ruthless and competent, she'll get the success. She won't be called a bitch. An asshole's an asshole, whether a man or a woman. And so you don't have to be an asshole to climb the corporate ladder. You just got to be competent at it. Do the good job.
Well, you know, when you go online and you're playing a video game or whatever, and you assign yourself a name. At one point, I assigned myself a name, Libertarian Samurai. And the reason that I assigned myself that name, and this is one of those things that I try to teach my kids, is a samurai, the actual translation of that, a samurai is a servant. Mm-hmm. Servant of the people. And I truly believe to lead a good life, you know, and this, you know, I wasn't religious when I grew up, but to lead a good life, you need to be a servant of the people. You need to, you know, but at the same time, I believe in that warrior mentality of being prepared for when you have to kill the dragon, you can kill the dragon. But, you know, these people that are assholes, all they care about is themselves.
There's the name for your nonprofit.
They're not living the samurai life of serving the people, and you know,
constitutional samurai or constitutional. I was thinking
libertarian samurai.
Well, I was thinking, yeah, but then you're tied to the Libertarian Party, whereas what you really want to be tied to is the Constitution. You want to be tied to 2A.
Right.
I was almost thinking of 2A Ronin, because the Ronin just wants to be a samurai.
Yep.
just wants to follow Bushido and serve where he can.
Yep.
It doesn't. If he has a horrible master, he'll leave that master to go find a better one. He just wants to follow Bushido, and it's almost like whether you're following, because you don't want to follow the wrong party down the wrong path. That's what we've been complaining about with Republicans lately, is that they're anemic, they're just as bad, they do nothing. So to be a samurai for them is just like in those movies when you see the samurai who, if you ever watch 13 Assassins, go watch that. It's a great movie. But you have these samurai who are throwing their bodies in front of arrows and swords and spears to protect a lord that was so evil and corrupt. And at some point, they're actually damaging their own Bushido, their own samurai spirit by doing that. Is it, I'd almost have to think if there's a Valhalla for the samurai, you would get there and there'd be different rooms. Yes, you were the perfect samurai that you followed your master to death, but that guy was a bad dude, so you go to this room over here. You know what I mean? Because Bushido also comes with a little bit of the European knights chivalry. That, you should have been the first one to chop off your master's head and then kill yourself. That would have put you in the big room over there on the, that would have put you in top tier over there. That is what Bushido would be. But instead, that it was amazing to watch those guys just keep fighting for that evil man,
Yep.
And so, that's interesting. I think that'd be kind of cool. Something Ronin, 2A Ronin.
Yeah, that's a good name.
I like that.
Yeah.
Warrior Poet might like it too. I think he considers himself a Ronin.
Yeah.
You can tell lives his life by probably the Five Rings by Miyamoto's
Yeah, maybe.
book. He tends to talk like that a lot. The way he talks sounds like if he could have been his student, he would have tried.
Have you seen poor James Yeager lately?
Who's that?
James Yeager. He had a channel called Tactical Response. He's friends with the guys from Warrior Poet Society. He's been on their channel several times. He teaches handgun type stuff also.
I might know him if I saw him, but not off the top of my head.
But he unfortunately got ALS.
Oh,
And he's wasting away fast.
is he?
Yeah, because he's big, huge, muscly dude. Now he's like,
There you go. You wonder if there are things that are on the planet. Is there an animal? Yeah, is there an animal that's everything there's almost, I would say, at least 50-60% of what's on the planet will kill you.
Yeah. True.
I mean, most of the myths and things like that and like Grimm's tales and things that even go back farther, were just about trying to tell you, if it has 8 legs, if it slithers on the ground, kill it.
Right.
You're going to get killed by one of those before you get eaten by a tiger or by a lion.
Yep.
Man. Ever since I had COVID, I've had this cough that I haven't been able to get through. And then they gave me this heart medicine, this Lisinopril. This supposedly has a side effect that gives you a smoker's cough.
Oh, joy.
And I think that's what it is.
Joy.
More.
Don't you love side effects?
It gets right up into here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had coughs before where you want to cough, but this actually, it feels like these little spikes are poking into my throat, and they keep poking and poking and itching to the point where I just have to try to cough it. Oh gosh.
Yep.
I'm afraid they said, that if you get it, tell us and we'll give you something different. But it's like, then what is that one side effect?
I just can't wait till they start putting on bottles. Side effects may include wokeness, LGBTQ type behavior, need to groom.
Well, it's kind of fascinating how many people
I'm going to hell.
are on the prescription spectrum that are out there who are advocating for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's the one thing that people won't talk about when it comes to mass shootings.
Yeah.
They want to close their ears and say that's not us. But I'm sorry, in the frickin' TV commercials,
Mm-hmm.
if you have increase.
They have suicidal thoughts.
Increase in suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Wait. Wait a minute. So I already have those,
Right.
and then you give me something to enhance that.
Yep.
You know what? Just and I know how much people have a problem with this. Just give them some joints and send them home.
Yeah.
Just give them some joints, send them home.
I just don't understand.
Give them a job sitting in a toll booth taking money.
Who was the guy that decided in the pharmaceutical industry that almost everything has to be opioid based? It's like, let's see here. Well, that worked pretty good on
Well,
that.
if you did you watch Dope Sick?
No.
Oh gosh. Now, whether or not how much of that's factual, know, because they talk about the family that created OxyContin and then pushed it and how they pushed it and so they showed it from their point of view. And which is funny because at the end of the series they show you actual testimony from the real people.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they portrayed them, the way they're talking, is not, not as diabolical as they want you to believe they were. But you don't get that progression from that drug without being somewhat diabolical. The way they went about pushing it and how they prescribed it. It would wear off being used. Well, the effects of it would wear off.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they said, we'll just double it. It wasn't like you go from 5 milligrams of stuff to 10.
Right.
They started people off at 50 or 25 or some ridiculous number and then just doubled it instead of going up another 5 to see if that would manage their pain. And then when that didn't happen, then they doubled it again.
Right.
And so it fundamentally rewires your brain.
Right.
They actually have evidence that says it actually
Well, yeah. You've heard
direct
of that.
stuff.
You've heard of that rat experiment, right?
Yeah.
Or they were given a rat drugs, and all the rat had to do was push a button to get another dose.
Right.
And there was another button over here where they could push it and get food.
Uh-huh.
And literally a rat would starve.
Right. Well, but
by pushing the other button.
But it wasn't just because they were getting high and enjoying the high. They actually found that it alters the DNA in the brain.
Yeah.
To the point where you get this feeling that if you don't get it, it's not that it won't take the pain away. They feel like they're gonna die.
Right. Yeah. Star Trek did an episode on that too.
How do you start seeing reports like that, and then be like, we just got to double the dose. That's how you fix that problem. You just double the dose.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in fact, what's interesting is Michael Keaton's character in it, who's a doctor who prescribed it, then got in a car accident later, started taking it. He got hooked. He goes to rehab, and then calls somebody that he, the guy who sold him his farm rep. He called him, and you think there's going to be this. Well, he comes, and this kid talks to him like, you know, you were kind of like a father figure to me in a way, because he was really kind of mentoring him and talking to him. And this kid spills this beautiful guts to him and lays out this beautiful thing. And yeah, well, that's great, kid. Yeah, thanks. And he leans forward and goes, hey, do you think I could get some script? Because you thought he was going to lean forward and just be like, that changed my life, kid. I'm, like he was going to, like that was, but he was the true addict.
Yep.
And it was just like, no way, even him? And then he finally gets off the stuff, but it's so into his system that he can never go back to doctoring again, even though he applies for it. But because every time he goes to like get his, they ask him, and he just can't get over that hump of knowing that if he's in the same room with the stuff, he's going to take it.
Right.
And he becomes a therapist. He gets his license to become a therapist to help others try to get them stuff. But it destroyed his life. It was a fascinating movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch Dope Sick. I know I just ruined it for everybody, but
Yeah.
but it really, I mean it. And I've told you how I got some from my dad. It was only 5 milligrams, and to know that was such a minuscule amount of it now, compared to what they were prescribing to people, like horse pill size. And mine were these tiny little, like smaller than a Tic Tac. And when I talk about that stuff, it was magic.
Yeah.
How something so tiny made all my back pain just for 4 hours gone. But luckily I'd only take one like on a Friday to take a shower and go to a sketch lunch at the time. I would walk in pain at school and do all that other stuff, but for sketch lunch I would do it. But yeah, I could see how you get hooked on that stuff, and then just the words out of my mouth, magic. Wow. I mean,
Right.
because everybody keeps telling me to go get something. I say, listen to the way I talk about this. I have an addictive nature. It's not the stuff for me.
Right.
Although it works good. Wow.
Yep. Well, I'm going to go and grab my kids.
Okay.
So
Oh, have you seen Northman?
parts I've seen, I know of it. I haven't watched it a lot.
It's all right. I was expecting a little bit better from what they made it look like on the movie, on the
Right.
trailer.
Yeah.
It's all right. There's a movie kind of like that with Mads Mikkelsen that played one where he go see it. I can't remember the name of it, but all right.
So yeah.
Thanks
All right.
for hanging out with us.
Yeah. Burnoutstudios.com. Hopefully we can.
And if you know anybody who has military service or in some of these agencies that might think that they might know somebody that was on Marty's list at the beginning of podcasters that do 2A stuff, please hit us up. We would love to try to get a gun saved my life. Ask me about it. Going.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So
definitely going to get that, go hit up Black Rifle.
yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.